Is Samsung ditching the S26 for a S26 Pro next year? Now, there are some rumors coming out that Samsung's gonna be replacing the current S25, the base model, for next year, which is supposed to be the S26. And they're gonna replace it with an S26 Pro, kind of similar to what the iPhone Pro is to the Pro Max. And that's honestly the best decision Samsung probably made, if they do make it, since the S21 Ultra, since they introduced the Ultra phones. Because let's face it, nobody really likes the base S line phones, the S24, the 25, 23, because it has two big compromises. And sure, there is one huge redeeming factor, it's the form factor, but still, it's still a really expensive phone, it's a flagship. And the two things that people really care about in flagships, this thing is missing or just not up to par. And one is the battery. Now, the battery seems to be the battery is always really small because the form factor. You can't really put a big battery in there, and that's been a bit of a drawback because it doesn't have as great a battery life as the Ultra phones, just because what you can put in the phone. Now that might get fixed. I mean, they do have an opportunity to fix it if they decide to put in the silicon carbon battery tech. I mean, if it's going to be a Pro phone, it should have good battery life, right? At least that's what I think. So they could put that in, and if they do end up putting it in, it's going to have fantastic battery life because apparently it's going to have a 4300 milliamp hour battery or something. Now that's bigger than the previous S26. I'm not sure how they're doing that. There's probably some change in how what the battery tech is, maybe. But if they put in a silicon carbon battery with the 4300 mAh capacity, and that could honestly have more of battery life than the current Ultra phones. The Ultra phones are 5000 milliamp hours, and this thing will be even more, have more capability. Now, they might not be doing it. There's no reports coming yet of them doing it. And honestly, if they were going to do it, they should have probably done it with the S25 Edge. That's the phone that really needed it, but they didn't do it. Now, the second thing is, if it's a Pro phone, it's going to need to have the flagship cameras. And it needs to have the main 200 megapixel sensor that's used in the Ultra phones. And ideally, it should have the zoom lens of the Ultra, but that might be a bit tricky considering that this is a smaller form factor and the telephoto lens might be difficult to fit that thing in there. Now, not saying that Samsung can do it. They could. I mean, Apple did it with the iPhone Pro. That has the same zoom lens, although that's reportedly changing this year as well because they're using a different kind of zoom lens, but still, Samsung could do it, and if they put these two things together, they could have themselves a huge hit, a great camera and a good battery and in a compact form factor. Because honestly, I feel like there is a good market for that stuff, compact phones. And I know earlier on everyone's so focused on making big phones because people wanted bigger screens to view content and all. But carrying around big phones, it's a pain. And honestly, anything about 6.3 inches, it's a pain. Now, I used a 6.4 inch phone before, and that was okay, but now I'm using a 6.7 inch phone, and it's a little hard to use one-handed. And let's face it, we're going to want to use our phones one-handed a lot of the time. We're not going to be consuming media all the time. In a lot of time, we're going to be scrolling, messaging, and all, looking for stuff and all that. And you don't need that huge of a phone for that. And because of that, there is a market for it. And I think the market's honestly probably going to be increasing because nowadays people are watching content on other devices rather than their phones because there are other good devices available. Because earlier on, when the huge phones were in demand, phones were the primary source of media consumption. But now, people are using tablets more often. They're using their laptops for media consumption more often. They're using smart TVs. Smart TVs are really popular. So people don't really need that huge a phone. Now, some people still do. The hardcore gamers, I'm sure they still want the big phones, but most people, if they have a TV or tablet at home, unless they're traveling or something, I think they're probably gonna end up watching videos and all that stuff on on their smart TVs or tabs or their laptops. I mean, people take laptops on trips and they could end up watching it on that. And honestly, let's face it, as big as the phone screens are, the bigger screen on a laptop or a tablet is better. I mean, that's kind of the reason why the phone has a market. People want a bigger screen, and the smartphone cannot give them as big a screen as they actually need. So it has a market. I think that market is increasing, and Samsung could get in on it because if they can manage to bring this phone out with the cameras and the great battery, and give it to us at a decent price point. I mean, the Ultra is really expensive. Let's face it. The Ultra phones are really expensive, and most people just cannot buy those phones. They're too expensive. So if this can end up being a more budget-oriented option, it could be a huge success. And we know the iPhone, the regular Pro models do sell a lot. I mean, a lot of people do use the iPhone and the Pro models of the flagship iPhones. So there is a market for that. And I really think Samsung can capitalize on this. Now, what are the things that honestly concern me about this? Well, I am kind of worried about the pricing, honestly. I mean, they're gonna have to put in the camera, and they're gonna have to put in the more capable battery. Since it's a Pro, it's probably gonna need a bit of a more decent battery. And I'm worried that it will go above $100 or something. If the pricing range is only $100, honestly, it could hugely compete. It could directly compete with the Pixels and the OnePlus phones. And when you're directly competing with those phones, the Samsung's more likely to win because it has a better brand value in terms of customers. And the regular S26 phones, the S25 phones, are great phones overall. I mean, it's a flagship experience, and people like the way those phones look. Now, if they can bring this out, it'll be fantastic, and it could be a huge game changer for Samsung. And it could eat into some of the sales of the iPhone, the Pixels, and the OnePlus. There's exactly a category there that's waiting to be taken. Now, unfortunately, this might end up cannibalizing the sales of the FP, but I think they should really focus more on the flagships and making them as good as possible, and maybe turn the FP into a more budget-oriented device and do something else with the FP. But yeah, this could be huge.